I also want to bring it back around now. We've talked a lot about building value within a company, building financial value, building an enterprise value for a company. Now we're going to talk about building value within specific retail channels. And this is something that Andy started to get to this morning, but that I knew we could get back to later today, and that is thinking about the class of trade that you're going to operate in, particularly initially and in those steps beyond that initial class of trade, is really the key towards scaling and expansion and getting your product in front of the consumers who are going to buy it. Now, we are incredibly fortunate here to have one of the great thinkers on channel strategy in our universe, and that is Debbie Wildrick, who's going to introduce us to some of these key retail channels of trade.
Thank you. Yeah, I love to hug Jeff. Every opportunity I get. That's a good MC, too, who hugs his speakers. Yes, I'm really excited to be here today. I'm always excited to speak in front of a group of entrepreneurs. And I think that the subject of my speech today has really changed a little bit because it complements a lot of the things that you've seen today. And I think that you'll be able to pull it together much more easily now that you have an opportunity to really see more about channels. First of all, I always like to put this up in front of an audience like this because these are the 10 principles that really help you make a successful company. And one of those principles, of course, is channel strategy and distribution models, which is just one aspect. But today, most businesses will fail within 5 years. And we've all heard about the food and beverage industry. Only 3 to 7% of brands are successful. So it's really important that we focus on all the aspects of what it takes to build a really successful company. So I'm going to talk about channel strategies, but I'm really going to talk about winning at retail because I really liked the examples that we just saw from Scott, and I think that it will really help you see how to win at retail. So we're also going to talk about the viable business model, and that'll enhance some of the things that Andy told you this morning. And then we'll first cover the market opportunity and the consumer need, because that is one of the most important things of building a brand and building a company. I took a different approach this year, and I think if you think about the last couple of presentations, whether it was the most recent one that you just saw, where there were several examples, or Adam's earlier presentation this morning, where you saw a number of examples that were packaging that makes it stand out on the shelf. You know, lots of people have gone to school to get an MBA and learn all about this whole market opportunity and consumer need, and then to build a plan and to build a brand. But I learned more about this aspect of our business by being a retailer. And I was a retailer with 7-Eleven for several years, and I studied categories, and I studied consumer messaging, and I built products, and I reviewed products time and time again, so that I would understand what products were more likely to leave the shelf and go into the consumer's mouths. So I challenge you to ask yourself questions, and hard questions, about the brand or idea that you have. First of all, is this food or beverage going to satisfy a market need? Well, we a lot of times think that, but really, seriously. Who are my potential customers and where will they buy, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Do they know they have this need? A lot of times there is a consumer need out there, but they don't really know they have it. So you're going to have to teach them that they have that need. What competition is out there? You know, a couple of months ago, I had a client say to me that their passion was to introduce a natural energy shot to the market because they didn't believe that anybody was really doing that. And I asked them, I said, have you been in a Whole Foods lately? Not only is there usually a 4-foot section of natural energy drinks in a Whole Foods store today, but in 2002, when I started at 7-Eleven, the first natural energy drink was Hanson's natural energy drink sitting on the shelf right next to Red Bull, which was the only other energy drink on the market. So make sure that you've really, really studied your competition. And how distinct is my product that's being offered? Well, that particular entrepreneur that I was talking about did have a differentiation point, but he wasn't even really able to clearly express that. Can the product stand the test of changing trends or take advantage of those trends before they die? So make sure that you're on the life cycle of a trend that is on an upward swing. And then what prices are consumers prepared to buy the product, and can I make any profit? And we're going to talk about that in just a second, too. Who is your consumer? Make sure that you've defined that by gender, age, income, lifestyle, geographic, education, employment, race, ethnicity, all the aspects of who your consumer. Really, really define it by understanding what your product differentiation is and understanding the elements that will attract a certain consumer. And really, is there an unmet need, and when, where, and how do they shop? So I talked about the principle number 4, which is a viable business model, and then just now I talked about the pricing that the consumer will pay. So once again, if we're going to introduce a product to a particular channel, if we're going to introduce a product to retail, we also have to make sure that we have a viable business model. And so the first thing that we do is we look at the suggested retail pricing of other products on the market, our competition. Who is our competition? And really determine what is the price point that we think we can command for this new product concept. And we back that into what we would call a targeted cost of goods. So I was talking to an entrepreneur at the break, and we talked about this a lot. You know, today it is much easier to differentiate if I have a functional product with lots of ingredients in it. But I have to also be able to command a certain price point. So we need to know going into this formulation process that we can really make a product that can actually be sold in the marketplace. And then we want to make sure that we have the right gross profit for our company, and that's really revenue minus cost of goods. And I like to say that it's a minimum of 35% because on average that's what we've seen in the market. But really it's better to be 40, and I actually heard Andy say this morning 50. So definitely you need to make sure that your margins are there. And then there are different delivery margins for whether or not you're going direct versus DSD. And the margins for the retailers are anywhere from 38 to 48%, with take-home, which you'll see in a few minutes, being the lower end of the margins versus immediate consumption beverages being at the higher end of the margin. So this is what types of retailers that you can sell food and beverage to. And on the left-hand side of the chart, we have take-home. So take-home is a shopping occasion. And take-home means that I'm taking it home to stock in my pantry, in essence. It's an old-fashioned term, but it's very relevant to the shopping experience. These outlets are traditionally higher volume. So it's supermarkets, it's natural and specialty grocery, it's club stores, it's mass, and it's drug. And on the other side of the occasion, we have single serve or immediate consumption. And the words speak for themselves. Immediate consumption means that we go in and either consume this on premise or we go in to immediately consume it, as in the example of convenience store. But they are lower volumes per outlet and sometimes lower volumes per category. And then we also have, of course, across all of these channels, we have online retailing. Another example of this consumer occasion, across the top we have grocery, dollar stores, club, mass, and drug. And the shoppers continue to expand their shopping behavior across multiple channels. So where they traditionally used grocery for stock up, they're also using a higher degree of drug for stock up, as an example. But as you can see across the board, these are very much channels that are heavy on the stock up side. The fill-in occasion is when I go to a convenience store, as an example, and buy milk. And so those are all lower on this occasion-based shopping experience. And then immediate consumption, which convenience is not really featured up here, but one of the things that this chart really shows is that more and more consumers are using drug for immediate consumption and increasing their beverage choices, certainly in drug, as well as their snack choices. The one thing that this does mean when you're talking about immediate consumption and you're talking about the shopping experience is that they don't waste any time making choices. So giving them more choices doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to buy those choices. This chart reviews all the different types of outlet, and on the left-hand side is the volume per outlet opportunity, and then across the bottom is the margin for the brand. So what that really means is, what are the retailing outlets that will give you the highest volume potential, at the same time cost you the least amount of money to enter that marketplace? Well, those two are natural, specialty, and grocery and C-store. As many of you are introducing natural and organic brands, you're introducing functional brands, you're introducing brands that certainly appeal to that type of consumer, that is really where you want to be. And I've heard some other people say this today, is that, the first step is to really own natural and then to expand into other retail segments. Convenience stores seem to make sense, but convenience stores are still challenged with really attracting that health and wellness consumer. And then down in the bottom left-hand corner, drug, institutional, health and fitness, hotels, bars, and restaurants. Those are all great places to be for these types of brands, but it's very difficult to gain acceptance in those types of outlets because they don't offer a lot of choices. They don't have a lot of space for the consumer or for the choices inside the outlets. Also, to talk about beverages a little bit more, this is what our beverage categories look like today. Beverages are almost $70 billion, and they're not including carbonated soft drinks in this mix. But these are the differences in the channel as it relates to how I shop. So traditional grocery does really, really well with juices and soft drinks and drink mixes, as an example. Whereas C-store is really heavier on beer, energy, and sports drinks. And that's because of the consumption occasion primarily. It's easy to go in and get those things, and those are the things that attracts that consumer. Natural, the best-selling beverages are tea and premium and functional, and certainly this whole new category of refrigerated functional beverages is really expanding in natural and specialty first. A couple of comparisons as it relates to convenience store industry facts, and then I'm going to take you through a little case study about the sales of any kind of beverage. But convenience stores are 150,000 stores nationally. Their in-store sales of $200 billion. More than 80% of all their in-store sales are cigarettes, food service, packaged beverages, beer, and other tobacco products. So you can see the difference, and they do about, on average, $1 million a year in sales per store, and about 1,000 customers come in with an average register ring of $5 to $6. The supermarket is the opposite, where there's 37,000 stores, but it's $602 billion in sales. And our average merchandise sales for grocery are $16 million versus 42,000 items carried in a supermarket, and on down to the average merchandise sales per store for Whole Foods is even greater at 37 million. So it takes about 37 Whole Foods stores to make up for one convenience store. Or actually 37 convenience stores for one Whole Foods. And then if we think about that back from a convenience store perspective, there's 1,000 customers per day that go into a store. 300 buy a beverage, 140 buy a packaged beverage. With 300 to 500 SKUs, what do I have all kinds of items to choose from. The top 2 to 5 items in any given category represent 80% of all sales. So where will your beverage fall? The average beverage in a convenience store needs to do 1 unit per day, and on average, that's about what will happen in a convenience store, and in this amount of space. I also wanted to include here a little bit more about how a retailer makes a decision about a category. The water category is $9.1 billion in sales. Each category really has a division of types of brands. So we have value, mid-tier brands, which are Aquafina and our Dasani, and then premium brands. And within those segments, I need to understand what's the growth trajectory, and what, if I'm reviewing a new product, is there a differentiation, or am I just going to be taking sales from other brands? And so that's how retailers really think through the categories. And I didn't, I'm not going to go through this because it's been covered, but I did want to emphasize that the go-to-market strategy is really important, because the go-to-market strategy is always really retailer-centric. And so there's a couple of different distribution methods. Direct certainly is either through the chain's distribution center or through the broadliner, as you heard earlier today, or DSD. But there's really, the go-to-market strategy must fit the brand. So is it appropriate for the brand? The category, does the category primarily get delivered DSD or through the distribution center? And then finally, the retailer may say, you know, you have to use this go-to-market strategy for if you want to do business for me, as 7-Eleven has done for years. So, with the alignment of your brand with your consumer, with the right channels, aligned with the right distribution systems, building and executing your strategy, building very important, starting with your proof of concept, and then moving into regional expansion. Having this in place prepares you for a national sweep and ultimately a very successful brand. Don't get caught off guard. Know your opportunity. Thank you.
In terms of online retail, have you seen now, with kind of the emergence of all of the same day delivery services, do you find that whether it's ready to drink or for storage later, do you find that channel will be growing a lot in the next couple of years?
Yeah, definitely online retailing will continue to grow, and there's certainly ways to enhance that. I've never said or believed that beverages were your best place to sell as an online brand because of the weight component. But certainly that's continuing to change, and also with the increased retail of beverages, then it makes up for that heavy liquid cost.